Welcome, AI Explorers. We're glad to have you here. We're excited to talk about our topic today, AI in agriculture. And it's a fascinating subject. We have seen a number of advancements in agriculture, and it's an important part of our daily lives. We all like to eat, right? So, Jacob and I are going to discuss what we found and how much AI is being implemented in agriculture already and what we can look forward to in the future. So, beginning thoughts, Jacob, what do you think about some of the things we've investigated and found out?
Yeah, I think one of the things we've talked about on this channel a lot is how artificial intelligence can help us. And a lot of times when we look at the topic of artificial intelligence, there's a lot of news, there's a lot of press about how it's going to remove jobs, about how robots are going to take over the world and destroy us, and those kinds of things. But when it comes to an application such as agriculture, it's pretty obvious that this is an area where artificial intelligence has a lot of promise to help us. You and I have already talked in a prior conversation about how using artificial intelligence, companies have identified new drugs or new ways to use existing drugs. And I believe that some of those weight loss drugs that have, recently come out were actually older drugs and their impacts were discovered through the use of artificial intelligence. And so, in a very similar vein, we've been looking at the problem of feeding everyone on the planet, especially when you consider population growth. And so, how do we use the resources we have more effectively? And I just think that it's an obvious use case for artificial intelligence to do it in that way, to use it in this way to like help us feed everybody. And it's an obvious benefit to humanity. And so for that reason, I think it's a good topic to discuss as kind of saying to everybody, hey, here's artificial intelligence and it's doing good.
Right. And I like what you said early on in your statement, where you mentioned taking jobs from people.
Right.
And right now, there's a shortage of people interested in doing farming. And so a lot of the technology that's available now or coming to the forefront is helping to fill in some of those gaps where those shortages lie in food production, in harvesting, in other areas. So we're going to see a number of things as AI and robots begin to in the agricultural industry. And it's been fascinating reading through these articles and watching a couple of videos about what already is available in agriculture with AI. And one of the most fascinating things that I thought was just amazing was the AI that's using lasers to take out weeds. So it's going
Yeah.
across a farm or a field and identifying what is a weed and what is the real plant, what is the plant, the food plant, and then zapping it with laser. So I see that, augmenting some of the or reducing the use of pesticides or herbicides. I would love to see it reduce the use of pesticides, specifically having had a box garden in my backyard for a couple of years, and one year looking over and going, oh, one evening looking at my tomato plants and going, oh, they're looking really great, and the next morning they're just twigs because these big giant green worms had eaten them all. And if I'd had a drone out there hovering over my plants with some lasers, maybe they would have
Choo,
been
choo, choo,
saved.
choo. Right. Yeah. No, the search and destroy lasers there for you. Um, One of the other things that I think is cool about that application is, like you said, we can decrease the use of pesticides, right?
Yeah.
And pesticides, I know that there's been ongoing litigation, there have been problems. So we look at the use of pesticides as to like the reason that I believe that bald eagles are or were endangered. I think they still are endangered in the US, and that's kind of like our
DDT.
national bird, right? And
Yeah.
so, uh, there's that. So there's these unexpected side effects, and then also there have been lawsuits about people who've been using pesticides, using gardening chemicals that cause cancer and other things. And so if there's a way to use artificial intelligence to eliminate that, but plus anybody who's ever pulled weeds in their lives, uh, should be very grateful for this technology. Just
Yeah.
saying. I just think that, if I can shoot lasers out, if I can shoot weeds out with a laser, this is a good thing. Was
Yeah, we can always go to that sci-fi element of things, but yeah, I see these technologies and what the applications are for this to help combat a lot of the global issues that we're struggling with food production, maintaining field health, uh,
Mhm.
where to fertilize, when to fertilize, those kind of things. As these things are gathering and looking at the data of those things, when to plant your crops, when to harvest those crops, what does that maximum yield look like, and help reduce some of the wastes that are involved with agriculture. In the fact that we lose a lot of food in just the harvesting or the production or the transportation, and when those optimum times are to achieve ripeness or those other factors to get that to market. And then, the other fascinating things, like we've already talked with on finance, when to take those things to market so that they can maximize their pricing or adjust the pricing in a certain way to help facilitate food to everybody. I know we've, in our own area here in the United States, we talk about food deserts. A lot of the hospitals in the area talk about food deserts, and how can we get food to those food deserts where there are smaller areas that don't have larger stores that can supply these types of foods, and what AI is going to help us do in
In terms of
eliminating
logistics.
some, yeah, in
Right.
terms of logistics and eliminating some of those. We were talking earlier about plenty, and you were commenting on the vertical gardens,
Yeah.
and how is that maximizing yields? And you can see that in a smaller space, you have that vertical. And so we're going to see AI looking at that and making some adjustments as well.
The costs of using AI, because I have a feeling that, I know that there's somewhat of a divide, or at least I've read that there's somewhat of a divide between like larger industrial type farm companies versus, independent farmers, right? And so how does this save you money? How does it actually help you to improve your farm operations? And so I think there are opportunities. Obviously, some of them aren't fully there yet. Like we think about robots in terms of warehouses and those kinds of things, but the opportunity for using robots in agriculture is already here, right? Like
Right.
tractors don't have to be as careful, right? Like you can send them out, and autonomous tractors are things that people are starting to implement. Um, but then also
Right.
just like you were talking about when to irrigate, how to manage your crop better, how to plant better, or when to plant at opportune times, managing the soil. All of these are things that are already being built. And I think that it rests on the companies themselves to show how this is going to be profitable for a lot of these farmers. Like it's nice to build like that vertical farm is really cool. And it's amazing to see the machinery and the robots and the use of artificial intelligence, all of that. But really, how can you spread a lot of this artificial intelligence technology to farmers generally? And I think that that's probably one of the biggest challenges as we look at this combination of artificial intelligence and robots is how do we democratize, I guess, in a way, using artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, I mean, we can see it in all sectors of life. People are a little reticent, a little,
Hesitant to use the
shy
tech.
about, yeah, using new technology for various things. And agriculture is no different. Farmers are souls of the land, really, in a lot of instances, and they see that as, the physical labor or whatever. And it may be difficult to get that into their hands or to help them see the benefits of using these
Mhm.
technologies to augment their work. But I think, I'm very optimistic on that forefront, that I think a lot of individuals will be ready to use these technologies to ease their workload, to uh,
For
better
sure.
accomplish their tasks, and to, shore up some of those deficiencies like we already spoke about with the work supply. Who can do those? Well, a lot of the robots can pick the food or, manage the tractors or do those things where you don't have to monitor your fields as much. And so that's it's going to give way to a lot of uh, opportunities to face some of these challenges that we're looking at already.
Right. I know from from the immigration perspective, as an immigration lawyer, that that's one of the reasons there are a lot of people advocating for loosening, allowing more immigrants in to pick crops in our fields because so much of our food doesn't get picked and it just goes to waste. Um, and so I think it's also appropriate to look at how artificial intelligence can help with that. But I think it's one thing when we look at some of these office tasks and we look at ChatGPT and we say, well, it's going to help me with the spreadsheet. The cost is low. I'm already
Right.
paying a monthly fee and it happens easily. Whereas if I'm a farmer or even a larger company that owns several farms, how do I implement artificial intelligence technology? The expense is a lot higher. And so I think
Yeah.
figuring out how to implement is going to be a process in and of itself. But like you say, there are already benefits that you can easily dream of, and that's kind of where we started. Is when we talk about artificial intelligence and its promise to do good, some of the benefits
Right.
that you can easily see is, well, yeah, I mean, maybe there's a chance we could grow more food, reduce waste, make our land usage more sustainable, and then use data to just kind of do better overall, perform better overall. But I think
Right.
for humanity, it should be about more than profits, right? I think there's a lot of concern. Robots are taking our jobs now, um, except for, we discussed maybe not, given that we have
Yeah.
this need. Um, and so there's just a lot of interesting, there's a lot of promise for using artificial intelligence in this way.
Well, and as with any industry, we're already seeing a lot of companies created or stepping forward. Companies
Hmm.
like Plenty, Blue River Technology, and App Harvest are already doing fascinating work to augment the farm industry in and of itself. Microsoft is already diving into it as
I was
well.
about to say Microsoft as well. They've got their fingers all up in artificial
Yeah,
intelligence.
yeah, and I see, the opportunity for these companies to really help farmers, one, probably mitigate some of those costs because they're getting funded or backing from investors and those kind of things. And so I think as the human race, we need to all look into that, and because
Hmm.
if we don't have food, we perish as a race or as a group of beings on this planet. So this is definitely one of those professions that I think needs to be bolstered and augmented by any means necessary to help facilitate food to the world. Having visited and lived in countries where there was limited resources or for one reason or another, and seeing the poverty level, using AI technology to allow us to augment this and feed those that haven't those options would be a fantastic altruistic way of using these technologies to help.
So on the altruism side, that was OpenAI's, that was the point of its ownership structure. And we've talked about
Right.
a little bit when they had some organizational snafus about what that meant for them. I mean, everybody knows what happened with Sam Altman and going and then coming back. Um, but it's interesting to look at these companies. I didn't look into that side as to whether any of them are organized as nonprofits or if they are for-profit companies.
Yeah, I don't know either, but we should definitely look into that and post that in our description and say,
Yeah,
these are companies to invest in, or they're they've got good outlooks for helping people and assisting with those things, kind of like other organizations that we know of. So there
yeah.
is that component to this use of technology, this use of artificial intelligence to help.
Yeah. And not to have a long corporate conversation, but there are, corporate forms that can help you do good and consider your impact on the world in addition to considering shareholder value. So we talked about that a little earlier on about B corporations and those kinds of things. Um, so but I think at the end of the day, when it comes down to a company or a corporation or even a small business, it's going to come down to, is this economically feasible for me to implement? So, anytime you have a company and you say artificial intelligence, the thing right now is you can raise a lot of money doing that. But when it comes to, let's say I'm a small business owner with a farm and I've got, annual revenues between 1 and 10 million, the likelihood that you can raise, and you say we're going to use AI, the likelihood that you raise capital that way is pretty limited. And
Right.
so there are some just practical realities of, okay, how am I going to afford an autonomous tractor? Uh, is the price point yet at a point where I no longer have to hire John to ride the tractor for me, and those kinds of things? And then what about repairs? And how much is that going to cost me? Is it more expensive to maintain? Am I getting a bigger crop yield? Will that help me to be able to afford it? And so these are
Yeah.
questions that aren't yet answered, but I think that they need answers as people consider to invest in artificial intelligent technology in whatever agriculture operation they're running, whatever size, right? So all
Agreed.
of those are
Agreed.
interesting questions to just think about.
There's
Um,
certainly challenges to be overcome with implementing AI in the agricultural arena for sure. And I think there's challenges to be had with implementing AI in any of these sectors or markets that we've been discussing. But I think that's the great thing about the human spirit and the ingenuity is that we'll find some way of overcoming it. I mean, look at what impact AI has had in the positive already. Yeah, we can certainly talk about some of the negatives, but look at the positives that it's allowing us to do, and freeing up some time to increase our work in other areas where we're more passionate or more interested in doing those things, rather than just slugging through something that we just don't find entertaining or enjoyable.
yeah, I'd be curious to see companies that are, for example, in the agricultural sector. There was a long time, and there still is today, when it comes to the energy industry, government subsidies for investing and
Right.
creating in that sector. And it would
Well,
be
and there's
neat to see that happen in the agricultural sector as well. Go ahead.
there's lots of subsidies for agriculture and farmers in the United States. I don't know if anywhere else, but I'm not familiar with laws and policies there in Europe or Africa or other areas, but here definitely you can get some assistance and backing from organizations. And I'm sure as we see AI and these technologies, and you look at these companies like we have already mentioned that are interested in facilitating some of this, they'll put investments. I mean, the billions of dollars that were invested last year in generative AI are we're going to see a probably a doubling, if not
It's
more,
going
of
to
those
keep
investments.
going. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And people are interested, they're vested in seeing what the practical applications of artificial intelligence can be. And I find that fascinating. What we're looking at and going, oh, that we could use it this way. And so that's going to be a really, I think that will help us overcome those hurdles and challenges that we're going to face in the agricultural, in marketing, in law, in other areas of our lives.
Long story short, we think that the use of artificial intelligence when it comes to agriculture is a good idea. It's
Yeah.
definitely something that people should be
Right.
doing, and people are using it in that way. I mean, we're happy to see that and to read about it, to learn about it. Um, but I think the biggest challenges are probably more administrative and logistical,
Right.
in terms of how and whether to implement these technologies. But I think we're at an inflection point when it comes to using artificial intelligence. I think ChatGPT showed us that we're at a point where artificial intelligence is now becoming useful, in this
Yep.
incredible way that it can magnify. And so, whether or not it's profitable from an agricultural standpoint is not something necessarily that I have expertise to comment on, but it's definitely something that I think anybody who works in the agriculture industry should be looking at some of these tools and going, "Hey, I wonder if I can double my output." Um,
Right.
if I can improve or increase my crop yield, my soil management, if I can save costs with AI, or if this is going to be more expensive for me. But I think when it comes to putting that information together or researching it is probably the biggest piece that somebody should be looking at in terms of implementing AI.
Exactly. And I think that's the real crux of all of this is what the the ingenuity of all of this to implement so many things and to accomplish so much with these technologies. So, any parting words, Jacob?
No, I was just going to say like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this conversation as we continue to talk about artificial intelligence in a variety of industries. We've touched on it when it comes to healthcare. We haven't had an in-depth law conversation yet, but here on this channel, we engage with the topic of artificial intelligence in a variety of industries, and we have a lot more to come this year. We're so excited to share this topic with you.